Hi people, Moin away from back here again as always and as usual. This is going to be a quick video that I'm going to do on, as you can tell from the header, the 7th Pentacle of Saturn. I repeat, the 7th Pentacle of Saturn. Now, before I continue, I'm simply sharing this. This video specifically is more for people that want to hear what I have to say rather than actually read the article associated with this project. But I still heavily recommend that you read the article. And if you're seriously interested in this subject, needless to say, that you go over everything in detail and that you download and or play everything and anything you can find in the way of supporting or additional documentation or audio files in the article. The reason I'm recording this video this way, that it's purely an audio video and nothing more, is because it's not really necessary to record myself, in case you guys were wondering. It's not necessary to record my videos the way I usually do, where you see me talk. It's just not necessary, you know. I'm just going to be talking the way I usually do. So I'll try to keep this as short as possible. About approximately a month ago, I committed to this working because I wanted to see around July the 29th or on July the 29th, more or less. I committed to this working and I said to myself, okay, I just want to see if I can truly, be able to, if I can truly instigate or cause earthquakes. And I am not disappointed. I rarely am, even if I say so myself. So again, read the article and go over everything in detail. Everything and anything you can find there, you'll find it there. I'm simply going to read my article for myself, okay? I'm essentially going to narrate for you. And I'll go over everything in detail and explain exactly how things went. Now, the title, Earthquake Time, 7th Pentacle of Saturn. Yes, you read that right. It's Earthquake Time. How? With the 7th Pentacle of Saturn. I have carried out an operation for just that, terrestrial devastation, of course in alignment with my intent. So minimal damage and at the same time, still shit that will make the earth tremble, literally of course. See the oration I used here hot linked. The second I committed to doing so, an angel by the name of Malakiam or Malakiamu, from the above mentioned, let me just briefly spell that out for for people that are listening. Malakiam, and the U is optional. So he told me he prefers to be called Malakiam. Now, what this angel looks like is literally, well, the description says so. From the above mentioned first order came to me in the shape of a humanoid figure, a few meters tall, in black, the darkest shade of black, mind you. Like, think obsidian black. If you Google obsidian black, you'll see the darkest type of black there is, changing into transparent on occasion. When I was done after 3 consecutive Saturdays of charging and activating the pentacle, he turned into a 3-headed black dragon. Yeah, that was quite cool. Like a hydra almost. Same outline, color and all. He placed one hand on a pentacle until results showed, more or less. I also saw beautiful yet very scary to the average person angels that swarmed about and around the pentacle, both up top as well as underground, like wasps around their nest. They generally don't have pupils, so eyes are either fully white or fully black. I had, at some point, a dream that the dragon was crossing a river coming towards me, indicating that the project was halfway to completion. I also, near the end of this project, before results, started getting a semi-heavy fever, but purely spiritual. So I had all the symptoms of being ill, primarily feeling warm and heavy, without actually being so, as well as the fact that I felt more tired compared to the usual. And then see a short video of when I was done below, correct? I essentially recorded me finishing up the operation. I essentially left the pentacle. It's a makeshift pentacle. By makeshift, I mean that I simply printed it out on paper, on a blank piece of paper. And I simply carried out the charging with incense, Saturnian incense, and burning Saturnian with Saturnian oil and Saturnian incense. Saturnian incense would be patchouli, or patchouli. And I simply charged it with three consecutive times, like once every Saturday for 3 consecutive Saturdays, because 3 aligns with Saturn, aka Bina. I was told after I was finally done with all of it that I would get my quake in or shortly after 28 days. See for yourself. And then I have a neat audio file called Discernible Results in the Caribbean, and also a rich text document that you can download. With links essentially to earthquakes around the world that were caused by me or that were triggered by the 7th Pentacle of Saturn on my behalf. I specifically discuss what would set it aside or apart, so the details and the intricate mechanics of it all. What sets it aside from any regular, so to speak, coincidental earthquake. I say coincidental, so to speak, because nothing is coincidence, obviously, but still. You want to be able to distinguish exactly what was caused by me compared to what is just essentially dismissible because it's like just metaphorical coincidence, like I said, or it's just nature taking its course. Otherwise, someone can easily just argue that, it these are nothing more than coincidences. Earthquakes take place all across the globe, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that. So that's what I discussed in that audio file, discernible results in the Caribbean. Let me see what else I can share with you guys. And for the rest, there are nothing but links to several examples called from a website called earthquaketrack.com. As the name speaks for itself, I repeat, earthquaketrack.com. It simply keeps track seismologically of earthquakes around the world. Now, bear in mind, okay, I'll get to this in a second. I'm going to discuss the thingies in a second, the details in a second in a loose fashion. And yeah, anything else, the description in the RTF file, so in the rich text document with the title discernible results, it speaks for itself, literally, it speaks for itself. But I'm still going to briefly discuss it. So let me just start at the beginning, okay, guys? Yeah, this video might be a long video after all. But again, the subject is well worth it, to say the least, Now, I committed to this project around July the 29th, approximately a month ago. I said to myself, okay, I'm going to do it. I do it the same way I usually do with any of the other pinnacles, etc., similar to with the sixth and last pinnacle of the moon. I printed it out on a piece of paper. I said to myself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to charge every three consecutive Saturdays because it aligns with Saturn, the number 3, and when Saturn is at its absolute strongest on Saturday in the hour of Saturn. Now, before I did so, more or less, around the time that I seriously, intent-wise, or based on my intent or intentions, said to myself, I'm going to do this, okay, I'm going to do this, baby, we're doing this. Then that's when Malakiamu appeared, essentially an angel from, as the oration states, hold on, let me briefly just look up the order of the pentacles. So when I look up Saturn is the first one. Let me just briefly let me read the description for you guys. The seventh pentacle of Saturn. The seventh and last pentacle of Saturn. This pentacle is fit for exciting earthquakes. Seeing that the power of each order of angels herein is invoked is sufficient to make the whole universe tremble. And then an editorial note, or an editor's note. Within the pentacle are the names of the 9 orders of angels. Those of 6 of them in ordinary Hebrew characters, and the remainder in the letters which are known as the passing of the river. These 9 orders are Shayat HaKadesh, the holy living creatures, the Ophanim, the wheels, the Aralim, the thrones, the Shasmalim, the brilliant ones, the Seraphim, the fiery ones, the Melakim, the kings, the Elohim, the gods, the Beni Elohim, the sons of the Elohim, the Cherubim. Okay, just plain cherubim. So those are the 9 angelic orders. And Malakiam or Malakiamu, he prefers the former, Malakiam. He is from Shayat HaKadesh, so he's from the highest order. And he's also unlike any of the typical angels you will see regarding appearance. Just like I said, he simply appeared as a really black, like I said, the darkest shade of black, obsidian black. It's like looking into a black hole, honestly. Humanoid looking creature. And honestly, more or less like my thought forms, the thought forms that I have, my elite thought forms that work for me or on my behalf, those that I don't really share with the public, like my beloved enforcer and whatnot. But these are simply examples. Yeah, and he simply introduced himself and he told me, it was funny because it looked like he came out of he came from like my bathroom area or something. It was quite funny. But it's just coincidence in any case, in terms of appearance. And he simply told me, I'll be guiding you through the process of getting the most out of the 7th pentacle of Saturn. And he simply told me, you can charge 3 consecutive Saturdays, etc. Anything else that you need to do, I'll be guiding you. Just listen to your intuition. For the rest, I'm guiding you. And I did so. And on the 3rd day, I had to be as intense as possible regarding the ritual that I hosted. And when I did so, it's like he became petrified or calcified. I simply placed the pentacle on my kitchen table, and I left it there. And he told me essentially that I'll be less vocal, etc., etc. And he essentially became super quiet. Like I said, it's like he turned to stone. And then he, instead of the usual humanoid appearance, instead of the usual humanoid appearance, he appeared as a he started changing into a dragon. Like I said, he is literally just turned into an obsidian dragon, and the dragon had 3 heads. I can't remember exactly if the dragon had 3 heads right from the start. I don't think so. It was only 1 head, and he just he just kept his hand on the pinnacle, and he didn't move an inch. He just kept sitting there. And day by day went by, and I woke up, and that's when the whole thing got started, essentially. And at some point, the 1 head turned into 3 heads. And again, at some point, either shortly before or after that, I started getting like almost violently ill. Not violently, but I contracted like a huge fever that I think a week or 2 weeks ago, that lasted throughout the weekend. Essentially, I got that fever Friday or something, Thursday or Friday, and then it's again, I had all the symptoms, like I state in my article, of being sick without actually being sick. I had all the symptoms, like feeling literally on fire. It could be like 40 degrees outside, and if it drops below 35 degrees outside, I'm cold. That's how hot I was, essentially. And I just behaved usually the way people usually behave. I simply went on with the day and whatnot, but my appetite went down. I only felt like drinking stuff. I felt like eating soup. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like consuming any solid food or anything like that whatsoever, more or less. And then after the weekend, it faded away, and I was back to normal. And I also experienced a bunch of other inconveniences that, with other intense magical workings, I also have experienced in the past on regular occasion, like 1 or 2 cold sores in my mouth and stuff like that. Feeling pressure on my head. You can clearly tell that it's purely spiritual or mental. It's not physical. And it just goes on. And then after a short while after that whole thing, the 3-headed dragon turned into like a regular looking dragon, essentially. But he still pivoted between being obsidian black and gray. But my point is, he appeared more animate as in more alive, more mundane. To the point where he almost looked like a raptor, honestly. Imagine like a raptor with 3 heads, but a huge raptor. Or like a T-Rex with 3 heads. Like that. But he was like grayscale-ish. And like I said, in the beginning, he was surrounded by angels dressed in black or white, or a mixture. And yeah, these are like the scariest motherfuckers that you'll ever see, honestly, as an occultist. They had no they had no pupils, so it's like purely white or black. Like the black ones had like black pupils, and the white ones had white pupils, and their voices even were like demonic sounding in nature. And generally speaking, they just kept like hovering in a tornado-like fashion around the pentacle itself. And as time progressed, they became so intense that I could barely even look at the dragon. Like when I woke up in the morning, I could clearly sense that, hey, I don't have to focus on the power because it's getting way too intense, like ultra intense. Just like I said, it's like, imagine literally like disturbing a wasp's nest by throwing a pebble stone at it. And you know how these guys behave. They literally just keep flying up and down like they're losing their minds. It's like bees or wasps on crack. An entire wasp hive or beehive on crack. That's how these guys behaved. And they did a bunch of horrific stuff, like eat each other or emulate eating each other, swallowing each other and stuff like that. And they also like turn into weird monster looking creatures, like think of giant lizards or snakes, etc. when that happened. And after that whole intensity, it essentially died down. Not literally died down, but it died down, but they were like in the soil, literally like in the ground. And that's when, around that time, essentially like a week ago or a couple of days ago, I got like a dream that I state in my thingy, in the audio file, discernible results in the Caribbean, that check the map, and you'll see for yourself. And I checked the map, and yeah, I saw several earthquakes around the world. Now, mind you, earthquakes are common around the world. Don't think of earthquakes that will be publicized as in an earthquake that will immediately make headlines and whatnot. No, In reality, there are plenty of earthquakes that take place around the world without people being aware of it. It's simply seismologically documented, but not really those that essentially are so powerful that they make the news and whatnot. No. Those are the strongest ones. But in actuality, earthquakes take place almost all the time or quite regularly. Regularly, as in on a daily basis around the entire world. But in any case, like I said, I had like a post wake up vision, like right after I woke up, almost like in a dream state, right before I woke up, or as I woke up, literally the second I woke up, and I saw like a map of the Caribbean with the countries like Trinidad and Tobago and whatnot. And it told me, I simply heard the voice, check it, check it and you'll see. And yeah, I saw earthquakes caused there, and I could clearly tell that my energy essentially caused those earthquakes. I'm not going to go into the detail. Listen to the audio file for yourself, discernible results in the Caribbean, embedded in the article, so that you can hear for yourself how I distinguish it. Because like I said, I'm my biggest critic. I repeat, I am my biggest critic, in the sense that I'm not going to, it can also just be a coincidence. So I'm literally being ultra skeptical towards my own work, because I want to be able to prove to myself beyond a shadow of a doubt, at least more or less, that it is indeed caused by my power, and that it's not some freak occurrence or just a plain quote unquote regular occurrence. In any case, I go into depth regarding all of that about the results in the Caribbean specifically. So anywhere from Barbados to St. Kitts and Nevis to near Trinidad, the Bahamas, that entire region, okay? All the things that I have documented in the file, discernible results, in that either rich text document or PDF file. Just look for a document with the name discernible results, and that's what I'm talking about. I think I'm going to convert it to PDF. I might outright just leave it like that. It's all up to me. In any case, yeah, those links on the Caribbean, yeah, I go in detail, because I noticed, just like I state in the audio file, that hey, this is, you can clearly tell based on irregularity, on how irregularly they took place and whatnot, that this is not, I could clearly sense that it is my power. Now, there are also a couple of other earthquakes that took place in the past couple of days. Let me briefly open these links now, and I'm going to discuss it with you guys. There was one that took place in Venezuela, essentially, not too far away from Trinidad, but officially near Venezuela. It happened on August the 8th, essentially, when I started this whole thing, and I was also told that it was triggered. My intuition told me that it was triggered by my power as well. Bear in mind, this was when I had only just started. This was only a week into this project, and yet I still got results like that, which is good. A 4.8 magnitude earthquake. That's like an intermediary earthquake. And the region is Guiria, that's how it's pronounced, Guiria Sucre, Venezuela. And let me just open the following one. Wednesday, August the 30th, so yesterday, 4.2 magnitude earthquake in Puerto Rico, or off the coast of Puerto Rico in the ocean, specifically near the Puerto Rico Trench. Now the other ones, open up. 5.1 magnitude earthquake, 149 kilometers from the Solomon Islands, correct? Near the South Solomon Trench, essentially. And another one today, 4.6 magnitude earthquake, 36 kilometers from Puyo Pastaza, Ecuador. This one took place on the Ecuadorian mainland, 4.6 magnitude earthquake. Hold on. And last but not least, the last one before I closed off this project was a 5.3 magnitude earthquake off the coast of, again, the Solomon Islands, or right near the coastline, honestly. The region is called Honiara, 50 kilometers from Honiara, Guadalcanal. 4 hours ago, Thursday, August the 31st, 4:33 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so GMT -3. And it was reported by 3 people, the only one in my documents out of the list of earthquakes that were triggered by my power through the 7th Pentacle of Saturn, or better said, vice versa, the 7th Pentacle of Saturn on my behalf. And yeah, that's the last one. Now, with these, there is unfortunately no discernible way to do just that, to discern them or to set them aside or apart from the ones from the Caribbean, you know. So the ones from South America and stuff like that, like I said, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and the Solomon Islands, there is no discernible way, because you can argue that it's a coincidence, because when you check the history, earthquakes are quite common in that area, in all the aforementioned areas. Okay, even in the Caribbean, they're not unheard of. Earthquakes do take place. Like, for example, on average, in all the aforementioned locations, including the one in the Caribbean, the ones in the Caribbean, it's like 4 earthquakes a month, 3 to anywhere between 0 and 4 earthquakes a month. Now, but with all the other ones, other than the Caribbean, since you can't discern it, I can clearly still sense it. My intuition tells me that, yeah, it was caused by my power. My power is on behalf, the 7th Pentacle of Saturn on my behalf, working through me, so to speak, or better said, on my behalf, is the one that brought about those results. So in the document, you'll also find a tarot reading, a simple tarot reading on the one from Ecuador, because that one is the only mainland one. All the other ones were in the ocean or off the coast of island nations. This one is the only one that took place literally on land, on dry land. Now, I have a tarot reading as well, a link to it, and I'm going to simply discuss it here so people can see for themselves what time it is and that it's not nonsense, obviously. And my description says, see this in between brackets, see description of reading. It serves as proof of prior quake indeed caused by your power through the 7th Pentacle of Saturn. The 7th Pentacle of Saturn is abbreviated 7POS. Now, the question here is this earthquake in the 4.6 magnitude earthquake on the time and given date in Ecuador, is it indeed caused by me? This is just, since there is no discernible way, like I explained in the Caribbean, like I said earlier, this is simply just one example is enough to show to people that, it was actually my power. A simple tarot reading will indicate that enough. To the average person, it might not be enough proof. They might still be skeptical, but that's their problem. I know it was caused by my power, but that's the whole thing with stuff like this. Just like with magic overall, it happens in a natural way to such an extent that if you're not keenly self-aware and observant, then you'll never notice it. But again, the world as a whole is governed by magic. So, of course, the average person, this kind of stuff goes over their heads because they don't have the mental faculties. They're too low level regarding consciousness to notice stuff like this. There are some instances in which you have like unexplained occurrences, but generally speaking, practical magical workings, they go by unnoticed largely. In any case, now I'm gonna go through the reading. The first card, how you feel about yourself, the Hierophant, signified by the zodiac sign Taurus. Taurus speaks for itself. This card already confirms that yes, the earthquake was caused by the 7th Pentacle of Saturn on your behalf. The second card, what you want most right now, the Empress, signified by Venus. It stands for the fact that I want security and also be able to show people that, this was indeed caused by my project, my 7th Pentacle of Saturn project. The third card, your fears, the Tower, signified by the planet Mars, simply stands for the fact that superficially, subconsciously, I'm afraid that it is just a freak occurrence or just a coincidence or just like a daily occurrence, and that it was not caused by my power after all, by this project. The fourth card, the Wheel of Fortune, signified by Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, again speaks for itself. The Wheel of Fortune screams, just like the first card, that yes, this was caused by your power. This was triggered by your project. The 7th Pentacle of Saturn triggered this earthquake. The fifth card, what's going against you, the Judgment card, signified by the planet Pluto. It stands for the fact that that these earthquakes are not strong earthquakes. They're mundane by seismological standards. Okay, by seismic standards, they're quite mundane. Now, the definition of a heavy earthquake, the kind that shows up in the news that destroys buildings and whatnot, on a scale of Richter, these earthquakes are like 7s, the highest degree of earthquake. That's the one that can shatter buildings, etc., etc. But a 4 on a scale of 0 to 7 is like intermediary. So that's what it says. The Judgment card indicates that these quakes are lacking in power, but that's normal based on the nature of my working. I'll get to that in a second. I'll explain that in a second. Last but not least, the likely outcome card, card 6, the Devil, signified by the zodiac sign Capricorn. This simply stands for, again, the Pentacle of Saturn, okay, that caused that earthquake. So if you make up a summary of this reading, this tarot reading, the all the other cards are neutral with the exception of the first, the fourth, and the sixth card. All of those combined scream off the top of their lungs if they were a huge fat guy that could sing opera tunes like effortlessly, like Pavarotti. Screams, the entire reading screams yes, a huge yes. It was caused by the seventh Pentacle of Saturn on your behalf. And the only card going against you is the fifth card, stands for the fact that it's not a powerful earthquake, which I am already aware of. Now, speaking of that, let me make something clear. You need to understand that this is a makeshift pentacle. This is a one-time working. This is not a serious working that I committed to where I said, okay, I'm going to literally make the earth tremble nonstop. And I'm going to create a nice juicy Pentacle of Saturn, seventh Pentacle of Saturn, and I'm just going to leave it permanently charged and whatnot. I'm just going to work with it permanently. The same way that I engage with my occult work on a day-to-day basis. No, that will bring about tremendous earthquakes. Like really, you will really, fuck some shit up, bluntly put. You'll really mess stuff up, like globally. You'll really, oh boy. You'll really cause earthquakes that will kill people, outright kill people, and cause landslides and all kinds of other horrific stuff. That's the heavy-handed level. That is heavy-handed in nature, okay? That's your good amount of heavy-handedness. But this is a one-time pentacle. This is like a makeshift, like I said, a makeshift pentacle. It's like comparing a tent, a pitched tent that you simply pitch when you go camping to a house that is constructed with multiple stories and that can accommodate like a host of people. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, this is not a permanent magical working, or this was not a permanent working. This was more of an experimental working. I simply wanted to see whether I could do it and how much merit it has. Not that I needed convincing, because I know that these pentacles, you don't mess around. These things were not created out of thin air, or they weren't created to bullshit anyone. This is heavy-handed stuff. This is like only the strongest of the strongest can deal with stuff like this. So again, there is not one pentacle that doesn't live up to its name. You see in the Greater Key of Solomon, the Order of the Pentacles, that a pentacle can cause an earthquake. It can cause an earthquake. Oh boy, bet your bottom dollar and then some that it can cause an earthquake. So it's no different for this one. So I proved to myself after all of this, I was like, yep, I'm already satisfied, because the dragon told me we can keep going. Essentially, the original ETA was set at a couple of days from now. When I said, okay, when he told me like we can stop then if you want, I'm like, yeah. But I'm not honestly. I am an impatient kind of guy, but it wasn't that. I already have more than enough examples, okay, for myself as well as ones that I can prove from a neutral perspective. That see, this thing does work. This working is an absolute success, earth-shattering success. But yeah, most of my workings are, honestly, even if I say so myself, is always under as usual. So yeah, anyways, that's why. And that's why that's why these earthquakes lack power. Because my pentacle, like I said, it's a makeshift pentacle. It's not a pentacle that I created just for permanent workings or for permanent objectives. It's something that is like, you can compare it to a vacation job or a summer job that you just work 2 months and you get your salary, your income, your pay, and then you're done. Compare that to a permanent job where you have job security, where you're the established CEO of a company, and you'll keep working there like permanently, okay, or as long as you want at least. Yeah, that's my point. That's the difference. This is so that people can clearly distinguish the difference. So in reality, if I were to seriously commit to this working, oh boy, like I already said, bluntly put, I can cause earthquakes that will kill hundreds, honestly, that will devastate the world. But obviously, I'm very reluctant to do so because of its high level of impracticality. So just like my reading said before I even started this project, it told me that I can expect results, but superficial results, and also something that I only saw later on, or something that I only paid attention to later on, that these quakes would primarily take place abroad, so they would not take place in my country of residence, which is what I originally intended, but that was too far-fetched. And like I said, in hindsight, I noticed it. When I took a look at my reading again, the reading I cast before I undertook this project, I said to myself, oh, wait a minute. I was like, yeah, now I'm seeing it. Those earthquakes will primarily take place abroad. And they're just by seismological standards or seismic standards, they're just essentially quote unquote regular tremors. Let's just put it that way. Not to undermine the seventh Pentacle of Saturn, obviously not, or my work or anything like that. No, no, no. They're still worth noting, definitely. And yeah, what else can I say? Let me see. Yeah, and I also noticed that most of them would take place in the sea, which is the case, just like I showed you guys. When you take a look at that document, discernible results, and you click on all of these links, you'll see that all of these earthquakes, with the exception of the one in Ecuador that took place today, August the 31st, Thursday, 2023, at the time mentioned, all of them took place at sea, off the coast of some country, like anywhere between 30 kilometers to 100 or a couple of 100 kilometers off the coast, you know. So essentially in safe places where they didn't harm anyone. But like I said, these were level 4 magnitude earthquakes. These are average earthquakes, not really earthquakes that, you know, seriously harm people and, like I said, do the aforementioned damage. Those are the heaviest earthquakes, like earthquakes at level 7 and whatnot, or at the very least 6.5 and up. But level 4 earthquakes and below, nah, these are just like regular quakes. The ground trembles, but that's it. You just notice, hey, the ground trembled a bit, or hey, the ground is trembling, but nothing that will, like I said, cause buildings to collapse and stuff like that. And that is all. I closed off this project an hour or so ago. The dragon is gone, all of it is gone, etc. I cleaned everything up. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'll hear it if there are any questions, and goodbye.